Hi everyone, Katie again. So there's been some news with USA Boxing, and there has been a lot of negative reaction. So I want to talk a little bit about this transgender athlete policy and the history behind it, and what's not being said, and what's the truth. So just to let everybody know, I am personally the reason this happened. I don't know how much hate I'm going to get for this, but I don't know. People are probably going to come burn my house down and kill my kids and wife, but I am personally the reason this happened. That's me. Hi, it's me. I'm the problem. It's me. So I was the one that brought the USOPC investigation against USA Boxing for gender discrimination, and this is why this whole thing happened. It was me. So let's first talk about the history of this policy, because I searched for USA Boxing transgender policy on the internet and on YouTube, Google, YouTube, all over the place a few months back. Couldn't find hardly anything other than the policy itself. No videos, nobody really talking about it. And now within the last few days, like, YouTube's full of videos of people just screaming their heads off about this. So first I want to say this policy has existed since August 2022. So this has been around for over a year. And all these people screaming and hollering and bitching and bellyaching about it have had over a year to care about this and say something. They didn't say anything. So a lot of what you're seeing in social media right now is people who see an opportunity. It's clickbait, it's opportunistic, and to a degree predatory social media content. This has been around for a while. USA Boxing was already thinking about this, and they had a policy in place. So the policy as it stands currently was revised in October 2022, because that's when I came in the picture and asked USA Boxing. I had started boxing training at the age of 40 in August 2022. And in early autumn, I think it was August or September, I came to them and said, hey, I've been training for a few months. I kind of like this, but I'm transgender. What happens if I decide I want to compete? And, they shared their policy with me, which was written in August. So it had recently been written. And I asked them to clarify some of the language, because it wasn't clear. Like, it seemed like some of the language contradicted itself, and some of the requirements were redundant. So I asked them to clarify it. And so they came back in October with a revision, which the current policy, even though it's dated August 2022, was actually written in October 2022. So anyway, so that's kind of where that all started. Now, so the reason that this thing just happened was in late spring of 2023, when I was coming up on about a year of having boxing training. My coach thought I was doing pretty good and said, hey, maybe you should start thinking about competition. So I registered for both an athlete and non-athlete membership with USA Boxing. So they came back and they said, well, we can't let you compete against women, because the policy says you've got to be 4 years post-operative. You're only 3 years, so you can't. Or at that time I was 2 years, coming up on 3 years. So they said you can't compete against women, and I said I don't care. I've trained for this. I've trained to be a boxer. Just let me compete against guys, because I'm in a heavier weight class. I'm in the masters category. It's going to be hard to find women to compete against anyway. It'd be way easier for me to find a guy to compete against. So I said, just, put me in with the guys. And my coach was in agreement. He thought that was the right course of action. USA Boxing said, no, we can't allow you to do that. And this is really where what's being said in the media differs from what's actually happening with transgender people who want to box. people get this idea that if you're a transgender woman, you can go fight men. You can't. You are not allowed to do that. Now, maybe if I had been boxing in the men's class prior to this, maybe it'd be slightly different. But for somebody who's new to the sport, had already transitioned, found boxing after I transitioned, there is not a way for me to box, okay? So you get in the sport, you find you like it, you're going to a gym, you're training, you've got a coach. You get to a point where you think, hey, let's try like a developmental bout or something. I can't even get a membership as an athlete with USA Boxing to even do a developmental bout. So we asked for me to compete against men. They refused. They said, it's one of those things where they said, you can't compete against women because we consider you to be a man, but you can't compete against men because we consider you to be a woman. So the other thing, this is the interesting thing with USA Boxing, is they operate on unwritten policies pretty frequently. And then when things happen and there's consequences and they get some negative attention, they make a policy to respond to what could have been dealt with beforehand. So after we had the whole thing with you can't be an athlete member, they said, oh, by the way, even though you've completed the pathway testing and you've done the safe sport training and all this other stuff to be an official, because we have a shortage of officials around here, and like staffing events is hard because we don't have timekeepers, we don't have people to work glove tables, and on and on. So I'd done all that and applied for a non-athlete membership so I could help out at competitions where I wouldn't be competing. They said no to that also. They said, even though it's not written, we have come up with a new policy which has not yet been approved by the board of directors, but we're going to enforce it on you anyway, that transgender people may not be non-athlete members unless they meet the athlete policy requirements. So I was told I can't be a member of any variety in USA Boxing until I'm 4 years post-operative. Now, I don't know how everybody conducts their official roles in USA Boxing, but in the events I've been to, nobody is operating a glove table or being a timekeeper with their pants off. Like, your surgical status shouldn't matter for a role like that. So that was when I went to the USOPC, the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee, and I said, look, their rules as an NGO that they have to follow to be under your umbrella, so that they're not allowed to discriminate based on gender or gender presentation. And I had everything documented. I had all the emails from Lynette Smith, who's the director of membership for USA Boxing. And, I submitted everything, and I said, look, I don't care that they want to come to me and say, we don't have a place for you. What I care about is that they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to find a solution that we can all be happy with, because I offered to compete against men. I said, I'm a boxer. I trained to box. I don't care who you put me in the ring with, if it's a man or a woman. As long as my coach thinks it's a fair fight, I'll do it. And so Alex Lear, an investigator at the USOPC, was assigned. And that investigation went on for a few months. Then it was suspended because USA Boxing said, well, we're going to announce something in January. We're going to vote on something regarding this policy. So I don't know what that change is going to be. But that is why this got added to the rule book. Was the policy itself was a separate document you had to go search for, and it wasn't actually in the rule book. So this recent announcement was in regards to the USOPC investigation. They decided, well, let's put it in the rule book so people even know it's there. And now apparently there's plans. I don't know what kind of plans. I don't know what they're going to determine. Personally, I'd like to see them say trans women can compete against men until they meet the requirements of the policy. That's what I'd like to see happen. Now, the other thing that I don't see anywhere in the media right now. Because if you read through the policy, it addresses trans women and trans men. Nobody's talking about trans guys. And I don't know why, because in my view, we have a trans guy that trains at our gym, and I've sparred with him both before he transitioned and after. So I know what testosterone does to people. The difference was pretty significant, and that was, I think he'd only been on testosterone about 7 months. When he came back to the gym, he'd been absent for quite a while. He'd had top surgery. Life got busy, and he had started testosterone in that time. So he came back, and we sparred, and I used to spar with him a lot before he did medical stuff for transitioning. And the difference is night and day. Now he had put on some weight, he was a little bit out of shape and everything, but his power level, his speed, everything had gone up a notch. And that was in like 6 months of testosterone. So what's interesting is, with trans guys, you could potentially have somebody, if somebody didn't want to disclose that they were transitioning, you could have a trans guy who is on testosterone, doesn't declare that they are medically transitioning, and potentially be competing against women with what would amount to an advantage, chemically or pharmaceutically. Because basically what they did was they made a policy for transgender women, and they just inversed it for trans guys. And I don't think that was the right approach. USA Boxing did not consult with any transgender people on this policy. I even offered to give my input for future revisions, because I said, I don't think you guys really have the expertise to write a policy like this without the input somebody who's gone through transition and knows what it's like. I said, you need to get some people consulting with you about this that have actually gone through this kind of stuff. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not going to say what I think guidelines for trans guys should be, but I don't think it should just be basically the opposite of trans women, that you got to have surgery and then you got to be on testosterone for 4 years, the same amount of time, but at a higher level, because it changes the body faster. Testosterone brings changes quite a bit quicker. It's a different timeline. The transition timeline for trans guys is quite a bit different from trans women. So, if you want to be civil about it, leave a comment. If you have questions, I'll talk a little bit more about all this. But I am the reason this happened. So, I'll talk about it. I'm open. I'm pretty open about the situation, because I trained to box. I found the sport at the age of 40. I was 41 when I thought, hey, I've been training. My coach agreed, let's see if we can get you a developmental bout. Applied for membership and was told there's no place for you in this sport. So, what I'm fighting for is a place in the sport. I'm not fighting to compete against women. I'm really not even fighting to compete against men necessarily. I want to be able to compete. At least try it. And say, you know what? Maybe I get in the ring and I get my butt kicked. I can at least say, hey, I gave it my best. This is boxing. Sometimes, you win some, you lose some. I gave it my best and I tried. Maybe I win. Who knows? But I want to be able to try. I put the effort in. I've trained for going on over 1.5 years now. I've developed the fundamental skills. I'd like to be able to get in the ring, do a developmental bout, see how it goes. And I can't. So, all I ask is you be civil. This isn't about, I want to get in the ring and crush women's skulls and all these other outrageous things people are talking about. I want to give boxing a try and say I gave it a fair shot. Maybe I'll do well, maybe I won't. I'm in my 40s. I'm kind of overweight. who knows? I might do terrible, but I'd like to be able to try. So if you want to keep it civil, leave some comments. I'll respond. I'll be watching the comments. All I ask is don't be nasty. So until next time, bye.